Hitler's German forces have been in control of France since 1940. The British, Americans, Canadians, and soldiers, sailors and airmen from other nations prepared to invade Fortress Europe with a view to ending Nazi tyranny for good. Courtesy of elaborate bluffs by the Allies, the Germans are convinced the invasion will take place at the Pas de Calais. The Channel is at its narrowest point here, with the valuable port of Antwerp not far away. The invasion here would make the most logical and militaristic sense. But the real location is Normandy. On the early hours of June 6, 1944, the airborne invasion began. Their task was to secure key towns and bridges behind enemy lines to prevent a German counterattack, and also to secure a safe exit out of Normandy for the invasion forces that were to be landed by sea later that morning.
This is Pegasus Bridge, one of many key D-Day objectives. If the bridge remained in enemy hands by the time the infantry hit the beach, the Germans would have been able to mount a counterattack with heavy armour and destroy the Allies before they even had a foothold in France. This is the spot where one of the first British gliders landed. Even though the bridge was being patrolled at the time, the silent, engineless planes enabled the troops to get within touching distance of the bridge. During the occupation, the Germans were regular visitors to this cafe behind me. Little did they know, the owner spoke German, and she relayed crucial information to the resistance that eventually found its way to the Allies. So on D-Day, when the British landed here at Pegasus Bridge, they were aware of exact enemy numbers and even the location of the trigger that would be used to blow up the bridge in the event of an attack. The British took the Germans by complete surprise. They managed to have the bridge secured within 10 minutes. The first Allied casualty inflicted by the Germans was that of Lieutenant Den Brotheridge. He and his men were first on the bridge, and he managed to throw a grenade into a machine gun nest before being shot through the neck.
The airborne invasion consisted of more than 13,000 men. They captured key towns, bridges and artillery batteries, and generally caused as much confusion for the Germans as they possibly could.
Here at Point de Hoc, the Germans built large casemates in which to house huge artillery pieces. Now, as this battery overlooked Utah Beach to the west and Omaha Beach to the east, it was vital that it was captured. Despite the best efforts of the Navy and of the Air Force, the casemates were still too strong, so an infantry assault was decided upon.
Colonel James Earl Rudder led his 200 American Rangers from the bottom of the beach below to the top of the cliffs, using ropes, ladders and grapple hooks, all whilst under intense enemy fire from above.
The German garrison here was quite easily overcome, but to the surprise of the Americans, there were no guns here when they arrived. They'd been moved inland, so a patrol of Americans was sent to find them, and they destroyed them. The Americans defended this area for 2 days from continuous German counterattacks. By the time they were relieved by men from Omaha Beach, they'd lost nearly 2/3 of their men.
With airborne troops engaging the Germans and securing objectives behind enemy lines, it was the turn of the massive seaborne invasion fleet. Roughly 130,000 men ready to assault them head-on. Germans occupied the entire coastline in bunkers, gun emplacements and slit trenches, waiting for the invasion. The British landed at beaches codenamed Sword and Gold, the Canadians at Juno, and the Americans at Omaha and Utah. Some beaches would prove more difficult to take than others. Here at Omaha Beach, the German positions were strongest. The aerial bombardment had left the beaches mines, tank obstacles, barbed wire, mortar positions and machine gun emplacements entirely intact. From the start, the invaders had a brutal disadvantage.
The tide was strong, and navigational errors meant that many men landed in the wrong place. The ensuing slaughter left many of the units on the beach without leaders and suffering massive casualties. At one point, commanders offshore even considered abandoning Omaha, but small numbers of men banded together in different groups, inspired by words of various officers such as Colonel Taylor, who once famously said, "There are 2 types of men on this beach, those that are dead and those that are going to die." The Americans lost 3,000 men at Omaha. It is remembered as the bloodiest Battle of D-Day.